Simon. I hope you can all hear me. I'd like to thank the ECPS very much for putting on this conference, and on behalf of the advisory board, to say a particular thanks to Professor Caracas for bringing it all together, to Mark Findlay, one of our keynote speakers, and to Ibrahim Ozturk, who himself has been a victim of the policies of populism. You know, the more I look at where we are, the more I think that if the European Centre for Populism Studies did not exist, we would have to invent it. It is so important to have a centre like this, looking at the dangers that we face in the or on the political terrain which we are crossing. Looking around the room, I can see that most of you were around 20 years ago. Think back 20 years ago to February 2002. Most of us were pretty optimistic. In my own case, I had just been elected as the leader of a growing group of liberals and Democrats in the European Parliament. Democrats had the presidency of the European Parliament. We had a liberal president of the European Commission. We were shortly to have a liberal president of the European Council. And all kinds of things were happening across the world which made us optimistic. We'd had the 4th World Conference on Women several years earlier in Beijing. We'd developed electronic communications which allowed email systems and mobile phones to provide instantaneous communication. We had no social media in those days, and perhaps we were no poorer for it. Human development was a major topic for everybody. The UNDP was about to launch the first Arab Human Development Report. Al Gore was drawing attention to the urgency of taking action against climate change. We were moving towards being an integrated, progressive global community. Yes, it is true that George Bush had just succeeded Bill Clinton as US president. Tony Blair was in office in the United Kingdom. Bülent Ecevit was about to be succeeded by Abdullah Gül as prime minister in Turkey, but nobody doubted that Turkey was on a liberal progressive course. Gerhard Schröder was about to be succeeded by Angela Merkel in Germany, but nobody doubted that Germany was committed also to the development of democratic structures across the world. Even Viktor Orban in Hungary was a relatively liberal prime minister at that point, at the end of his first term of office. The European Union was about to welcome 10 new member states, 8 of them former communist countries, and one of them, Cyprus, on the verge of an historic reconciliation, or so we thought. The liberal consensus seemed pretty well established. The war on terror and the 2007 financial crisis destroyed all of those hopes. And what the historian Neil Ferguson has called a 20-year binge of credit and consumption and leverage has left us first with a financial hangover and then with the reckoning in security terms of how we handled the fall of the Berlin Wall. We look now across a terrain which is dominated by the rise of populism. Viktor Orban in Hungary, Mr. Erdogan in Turkey, Mr. Kaczynski in Poland, in my own country, the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom, and now Boris Johnson, until recently Donald Trump in the USA, and we are now seeing again the dangers of populism in the Western Balkans, where so recently people have gone through atrocious armed conflict. I hope some ideas of this will come out today, but I often find it difficult to determine what populism is, to describe it. But one thing I'm sure of, you always know populism when you see it. And we see it in far too many places today. And we see how the rise of populism has led to a deterioration of democracy, how it is leading to creeping authoritarianism, challenges to the rule of law, challenges to freedom of the news media. I never thought that I would see it in my lifetime in the United Kingdom. I was wrong. We have a prime minister who, when he came to office, first tried to shut the parliament and then tried to break international law on Brexit, who considers himself and those around him as being above the law. It's not as bad as the situation in Hungary or in Turkey, but we are on the same slippery slope. Is the pandemic, which has so diverted our attention, adding to populism? Well, we've seen emergency laws, extra powers for government and police, very dangerous moves in some countries to compulsory vaccination. I think of Austria, for example. I'm not sure how it is for others in this conference, but I have had 3 doses of a vaccine. I think it is reasonable for governments to impose some restrictions on the freedom of people who choose not to be vaccinated in the interests of public safety. That's why I disagree with the truckers in Canada. But I would never tolerate compulsory vaccination. I think it's a deeply illiberal and dangerous policy. And I think what we're seeing in the pandemic is another area in which a fundamental disregard for some of the bases of democracy and freedom of choice is being played out. I am looking forward very much to learning a lot more about what is going on today from the excellent speakers that have been gathered together for this conference. Again, I salute and thank the organizers for bringing us together and for giving us this opportunity.